TWMP Daily. We are joined this week. Aaron, it is one of my favorite people to talk to in all Missouri politics, one of the absolute smartest people. You're probably too smart to actually be able to get elected. I'm not sure how you did it. Senator Curtis Trent, thank you so much for the time.
Definitely not too smart to get elected.
But close. like you're when you think of some of these, a lot of politics is just a trench warfare, right? It's you got your guys over here, but sometimes there's new things that come on the scene, new concepts, ideas, new problems. I love to talk to you about them because you are truly one of the most intelligent people it's making policy in this state, and I always enjoy the visit. What have you been up to this summer?
Well, very busy out in the district talking to folks. Just this weekend had a dedication ceremony for a Revolutionary War veteran, which, member of the Sons of the American Revolution, very interested in history, so I was very honored to be able to go and say a few words at that event.
Well, now tell me about that. Where's that? Where was that?
So it was near Willard. It was kind of out at a more private cemetery, as many of those very old.
That's kind of out by the Ashcroft place, right?
Not in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
certainly. Civic education, passing on our founding principles and our history of our country to young people is something I think is very important, and those kind of things really raise that awareness, really connect.
How did a guy get from where the war was fought to Willard?
Well, that's a really interesting story. Yeah. So he was actually, as I recall the history, he was one of the last 5 pensioners alive when he passed away. One of the anecdotes that they told at the event was that he had rode his horse, had a calico pony, rode it into town from Willard to, to the courthouse there in Greene County to straighten out some hiccup that had come up with his Revolutionary War pension. He was 100 years old when he made that ride.
Dang.
So he was, I think, I might get the dates a little bit wrong here, but I think he was born in 1764, and so he died in 1865.
So he got to see Wilson's Creek.
I mean, he got to see the whole thing.
Damn. I wonder how many people fought the Revolutionary War that lived to see the Civil War. It can't be that many.
No, not
back
very
then,
many.
life expectancy was 50, right?
Yeah, especially if you were in war.
Mm-hmm.
That is so this guy fought in the Revolutionary War, and then if he's in Willard, he was 15 miles from the biggest battle in the West in the Civil War.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and so he would have seen all that history, and of course, made his way out, to what was the Western frontier at that time, and lived out the rest of his life here. Again, it's very touching. He had family that flew in from all around the country. You had folks from as far away as like Oregon and California, Texas, that all flew in to experience this.
Justin Brown says he's actually the most intelligent policymaker in the state. He chimed in.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, you're being very nice. Appreciate him watching, by the way. So what else have you done this summer?
A lot of parades, a lot of fairs. Just anything to get out in front of the public.
Y'all have long parades down there.
Well, not only are they long, they're fast. I call them more like marathons than parades. I struggle to keep up with the tempo of these parades.
You stay behind them, put you behind the horses.
Well, right. I want to talk to people as I'm going through. You're trying to hand out some candy, and they're just going at a steady clip.
Well, do you have Marshfield?
Yes.
So I didn't know where that line was. So you have the oldest 4th of July parade, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes,
it is a long parade.
It is. Yes, it is long. It is also usually fast. And then there's a ton of people that show up, so it's a really great event. And of course, there's there's usually a fair that's going on sort of around the 4th of July, so you're going to that and talking to people there, and it's just been a really good summer getting out and talking to folks.
Okay, so this was funny to me. Not funny, odd. I guess if you run for office as a Democrat, you have the same 5 or 6 things you say, and as a Republican, sometimes you have the same sheet of music. You have a primary opponent, and a person that I've met, Lori Rook, a credible person. Mm-hmm. But what was funny to me was I saw some part of the shtick was that Curtis Trent's not conservative enough, and I'm like, well, who the hell is? I mean, I don't know anyone just how they live their damn life, much less their politics, more conservative than you. If there's an award for the most conservative sumbitch I know, I'd give it to you. It might. Here you go.
Is it the Ozark Equalizer Award?
Yeah, for the most conservative person in my phone, it would definitely probably be you, actually.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, of course, I come from Southwest Missouri, 5th generation Missourian, grew up in the Ozarks. If you go back 20, 30, 40, 50 years when the Democrats were in control of the whole state, there was one holdout sector of the state, and that was Southwest Missouri.
Yep. It used to be, if you look at the maps of where Republicans used to get votes, there'd be some rich people, Danforth type folks around the St. Louis, like your Clayton, Ladue, Frontenac, all the people that are just devastatingly liberal today. Their grandparents made the money for the family, so they were Republicans. I found there's a break. If you made the money in the family, you're almost always a Republican. Barry Aycock would be the outlier of that situation. But for the most part, if you had to make the money, you're a Republican. You get about that third generation where you're living off that dude that made the money, you get quite babies? Liberal. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It filters down.
It must be those colleges they're going to.
Well,
out of state.
Sadly, we never had that kind of generational wealth to have to experience. I'll take your word for it.
Then it was Springfield, right? And then you saw Cape Girardeau was one of the first cities outside of that would have a little bit of a Republican presence. Then you'd see Poplar Bluff, Lee Summit, but really it was Southwest Missouri, and then a little band of communities in St. Louis County. That was the Republicans, period.
I don't want to talk any more about ballot issues because he's made me talk ad nauseum about them over the last month. But if you look at the ballot issues, Jasper County is by itself almost every ballot issue over the last 10 or 12 years, even the progressive ones. It is the holdout.
If there's one place,
they vote yes or no.
Even so I can say I don't think I've ever won Jasper County because even on Right to Work, Jasper County was one of the only counties that was a yes.
For it. Well,
they would have voted.
They would have voted
yes. Yeah.
Missouri's right on the line with Illinois. So most of your eastern part of the state, the Illinois government is a mess. Their policies are a mess. You get a lot of their benefits, but you have some states that might be more pro-business with Oklahoma and Arkansas. Really, Southwest Missouri is the place where it hits you different.
Yeah.
The labor issues hit differently and the further down in the extreme Southwest you go, the more I think you see the effects of. There might be a factory that might go to Oklahoma or Arkansas and not go to the Missouri side. That is a real thing you see there that you just don't see in other parts of the state.
No, although I will say Missouri being a crossroads state, I think we do have to be a little bit more sensitive to what policy is being selected by our surrounding states. Mm-hmm. If we become too far of an outlier in a bad direction, it's very easy for us to lose business across state borders. And the converse of that is true. If we get policy right, if we have a better, economic formula going, it's easy for us to draw business to our side of the line. And I think that's what we should always be aiming towards. How can we make Missouri the best regional leader in business?
You came up talking about education, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were you up for today?
So there's an education event up in Columbia. I was able to say a few words and see one of the panels. I was not able to stay for the entire event, unfortunately.
Is that about elementary and secondary? Is in Columbia it's about higher?
So it is. It's sort of all-encompassing. So it's about K through 12 higher education, and it's not only about the effectiveness, like how can we encourage literacy and numeracy and all the things that you want to see children be able to accomplish, just so that they can be able to interact with the world in a constructive way, be able to gather knowledge on their own without being in an academic type setting, but also how they can then interface with the workforce and be in a good position to translate the education that they're getting in particularly like a K through 12 setting or a higher education setting, how they then translate that into a meaningful workforce opportunity.
I've always felt that, and maybe being in the media field you see it very starkly, but the people that are educating folks, I think there's a fine line, and some of them stay on the right side of it, but I think it's institutionally, you're trained to teach a student to gratify you. Like the educational establishment says, okay, these are the things you need to learn. And half the time, they have nothing to do with what an employer would actually want you to know to do the job. And I think that connection, technology is helping maybe bridge some of those divides. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a big thing is colleges, high schools, they want you to learn a set of things they think you should know. And half the time, they have no concept of what the people would actually use the stuff they think you should know as far as job skills, because they're worthless.
Yeah, and so I think the better we can do a job of creating an educational program that is easily translatable into the workforce, with the understanding that you don't know exactly what a child is eventually going to do in their career.
Sure.
And so they need to have
A base level.
a base level of understanding that's going to be flexible. But also we're charged, I think, as a state that provides, a public education to its state's children, to ready them for civic life as well, so they can be meaningfully self-governing, so they understand the history and the principles of the country. It's not all about economics, although I think economic component's very important. It's also about are we going to transmit the values that will enable them to maintain the republic, to maintain our system of freedom into the future,
and get a damn job.
Yeah, we got to have a job.
That's-
if you can't get a job, it's going to be a real problem.
The republic is in an awfully bad way if ain't nobody got a job.
That's right.
That is the more intelligent people thinking and how you connect business to education. I think the better education you're going to get, because I will say I got through school. I'm not sure how much of it, outside of that base level that you do need, and I understand that, wasn't real connected to getting a job, the stuff you learn.
And I think even the length of time, we spend more time in education than people have ever spent in education throughout the history of the world, the average person. Perhaps there are some people who were dedicated academics that just spent their whole life in education in the past. But for the most part, we're spending more time educating children than ever before. And I think we have to look at that and say, is that time being well spent?
Yeah.
Are they getting the skills and the capabilities from that justifies that expenditure of time?
Do you think they are?
I don't believe they are right now. I think there's more could be done.
Could you have graduated high school in 3 years?
I believe I could have, yes. I think most of the people that I went to school with could have graduated high school.
I like
in
to
3
pitch
years.
baseball, so I was not going to do that. I think I could have done it in 2 if they'd have offered some summer flexibility. Now I don't know if I'd have been ready to go to. There's a lot that goes into that.
Sure.
I don't know that I'd have been mature enough to go to college at 16 years old, but I do think I could have consumed the information I needed to pass the test I was given in a much shorter time.
Well, and then we could draw some of the things that we're waiting until college to teach students. We could draw those down into the K through 12.
And I will tell you this: I have seen, just in my daughter being in high school, when I was there was no college courses taught in Neelyville High School.
And now
I was at a very small rural school. Some of that's changing. I have noticed you can start college with 6-12 hours from high school classes. So some of that stuff you're talking about is getting pushed down. I mean, I think that's a great. I definitely could have done college in 2 years.
Yeah, I also think that's the first thing I tell college high school students who want to go to college and save money and they're looking at the price tag of college. I go, stack up on your AP classes and those that you can get dual credit for, because I graduated from Mizzou in 3 years and that's how I saved a year off tuition. No, but it is and I also think that, like Senator Trent's saying, like, should we be thinking about whether some of those students should be getting associate degrees before getting a 4-year college degree, because a lot of associate degrees come at a much lower price, or
you can
they're
get you an
subsidized to
associate's
a
in
place
welding. Then you can go be a philosopher. By God, you'll have a job that way.
But do we always need to be pushing the 4-year degree? Does that always make sense for every student? I think that's a lot of what I think.
I'll ask you, do you think they should, I think, now I'm not totally sure, I had some scholarships, but I think they billed, when I went to college, by credit hour. There was a whole list of fees, like the government always does, fees you to death. But I think, to me, the credit hour thing, maybe you just buy the degree, right?
I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. Some of that, Senator Trent might have ideas on that.
And I didn't need some screwball music class.
I really think technology is going to exponentially kind of advance a lot of these concepts. Like, I just think that you're going to be able to learn faster. Time is money in education, and he's right. We spend so much time. You have to pay teachers. You have to take care of buildings. And if you're doing that for 12 years, like we are right now, that.
What do you think about the
costs
4-day
stack
school
up
week?
there. I don't like that because as a parent, it's extremely hard to manage for a two-parent working household, and it's unimaginable to me that we would do that to low-income and single-parent households. Well, and you're fortunate in that you and Blake have somewhat flexible jobs. Family around. Not total, but somewhat. And it would still be really hard for us to do. I mean, we still scramble on days where the kids are all out of school. It's just, I think it's completely difficult to manage for single-parent households or low-income households. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think that's how we should be trying to save money.
Baker
as a school
could probably raise the other two kids. What do you think about the 4-day school week?
I'm sort of the same. A lot of people have structured their jobs, and a lot of society is structured around a 5-day school week. But like with most things, I don't dislike flexibility. I think there should be more choice in schools, more options for parents, not less. And I think some of the reforms that that we've been pushing for many years now on the school choice front would make a lot more of those options available. And also, before we get too far away from it, as I get older, I appreciate how much energy and focus and productivity you have when you're younger. And those are the years that we're spending on education. And every year that we spend unnecessarily on education is another year in which we're losing the maximum productivity, the maximum focus of these young folks.
You have been a proponent of school choice since I met you. I've been a little slower. I don't really enjoy this, telling you were right. You were right. The idea's time has come. But like a lot of things, how you go about it's going to matter.
Yes.
You have a district that has a lot of Greene County, pretty much all of it but the city, right?
Yeah.
And you've got some
That's
Webster
fair.
County, you got Dade County. Governor Kehoe sat in that chair. And I asked him, I showed him the map. I'm not going to be the map that perturbs Aaron, the screwball Illinois map. But there's a map
put
here,
that one away.
somewhere in here. I'm almost positive. Oh, yes. If you
There
look
it
here,
is.
this is the map of folks that voted for Mike Kehoe, and then, of course, the St. Louisans that voted for Bill Eigel. When you look at this map, school choice, I think, really works for the Bill Eigel voters. But does it work for the folks that voted for Mike Kehoe? I think 27 is the year you're going to do this, right? That seems to be, from all indications, that's the year that you're going to go address this issue. I asked him, I was like, are the folks that voted for you going to pay the freight for folks that voted for Bill Eigel? And he said, no. How do you come up with a plan that protects Dade County while giving folks in Greene County more choice?
Well, I think that ultimately, if you have a system where the money follows the child, where the parents are in control of a significant amount of resources, that demand that is created will call forth the competition, will call forth the supply, and I think it's much like we didn't know that we wanted an iPhone until someone invented it. I think that when market forces are able to work, we probably haven't even seen the product that we want to use in education. It probably hasn't been invented yet, but it will be
I told
by
you
those
he was
market
smart.
forces.
Well, when you do that, though, can you tell the folks that your constituents in Dade County, they'll get the same amount of money they would get now?
I think so. I think if we do it right. Now, of course, there are many ways to do things wrong. There's usually only one or two ways to do things right.
I mean, Dade County probably...
So the devil's in the details.
I'd be a little skeptical that your constituents in Dade County have another school option anytime soon.
No, they probably don't right now. So they
I think even in the future, I would say I'm a little pessimistic that Dade County will have multiple quality high school choices.
They might not have. You might not have two schools sitting right next to each other competing, but you might have a concierge private tutor service that could start up where one person says, "Hey, I'm maybe like a master craftsman in carpentry, and I'm going to take on a K through 12 program that has a focus on carpentry, which is what I'm a master at, and I'm going to teach 10 kids that want to be in this program." I think you could see things like that could be successful and that could deliver a robust K through 12 education and could also deliver a skill that someone really wants to have.
Well, we're kind of seeing it with Boone County's the charter that's popped up to sponsor a new charter. I know that not everybody in Boone County is
Mm-hmm.
was excited about the expansion of
Flat
choice.
Doug knows a guy that's not too happy about it.
Yeah.
But youth isn't it Youth Build that decided to apply to sponsor the charter in Boone? That's an interesting.
So do you think you could take that and let them go on the internet and go to school?
I think that's possible, and
Th-
certainly,
that's
I
to
mean,
me,
again,
that
the
sounds
kind
more
of
like
thing.
the competition for folks in Dade County would be essentially you just keep your kid at home and they go to school on the internet.
And you're able to, with the internet, assemble all these different modules of education from, experts around the country or even around the world that, no one would have had access to 50 years ago.
The folks in the cities, the IGO voters, they have thousands of lobbyists worrying about them every day. Those kids have tons of folks that live every day obsessed with them. Dade County's got you. I mean, that's pretty much just you. And on this show, it's probably the only place a kid in Dade County is anybody's going to give a damn about them, because God knows none of the city media they don't even know where Dade County is. They would ask you, what turnoff Delmar do you get to Dade? But I've always thought, I went to school, I couldn't have taken calculus. I just wasn't still not that smart. But there probably was kids in my class that could have taken calculus. And I've always wondered why some of these folks don't come together and say, okay, at 1:30, somebody over that works for Carla is going to teach calculus online. And I bet now you don't have a teacher at Neelyville probably that was qualified to teach calculus, but something tells me they could facilitate do your homework, somebody can sit in there and be the interface. I've always wondered why. I mean, kids in Oregon County, you might have a damn genius that never, like you said, never knows they're a genius because they don't have access to those classes. I've always wondered why the state doesn't say, okay, at 1:30, we're going to give you a calculus course. At 2:30, we're going to teach some other high-end science course, and give schools that don't have the resources to have those teachers the ability to at least try.
Well, the way that the country used to, I think, find people who were talented in areas that didn't have a lot of resources is just the teacher paid attention to who was smart, who was capable, and they would try to get them, encourage them, and refer them to higher educational
And no
opportunities.
teacher ever had that conversation with me.
Well, it didn't always work. It was, this is the problem. It is
It might
just
have worked
done.
in this case.
It's just kind of done on a random basis. But I mean, there was an attempt to try to move kids into education that they could benefit from, and so like I like to say, one schoolroom America invented the atomic bomb and won World War II. So we had an education system. It was based on meritocracy. It put forth a lot of effort to try to move kids into the place where they could excel, where they could reach their maximum potential. And it wasn't perfect. It didn't always do it.
I would ask you a question, because sometimes I do think, even though you are very right, the time for school choice has come. It is here. It is now time to go down that road and see if it's successful. I believe that. But the generation of World War II also had a dad that took the Ozark, take the old belt
Took
strap,
the equalizer and administered a little justice.
and teach you to work and cut wood, and there's. I think sometimes folks look at a school system, and I've seen some of these places in St. Louis where the school system has failed. However, the school system failed last. The police force failed. The streets have. Anybody that could afford to move has. Every business is closed. The community failed, and the school failed. But I think sometimes we look and say, oh, that school failed. And I'm like, yeah, but what is succeeding there besides maybe gang traffic or something? I mean, there are communities in this state that have failed, and I think sometimes the teachers get a bit of a bum rap. If you get kids that are well-fed, they're healthy, taken care of, have parents that are engaged, that teacher's probably going to be a little bit better teacher than ones who get kids that aren't.
I mean, I think that's true to an extent. There's a little bit of a chicken and the egg type of problem there, like which problems have created which other problems. But, if you look at where America was at in the 20s and in the 30s as you were on the lead up, we were in the midst of the Industrial Revolution. We were on the lead up to World War II. You had a great deal of poverty. You had a great deal of economic turmoil, and you still had folks who were able to go out and succeed. You still had folks that were able to go out and invent the technology that ultimately catapulted our country to preeminence after World War II. And they did all those things without a tremendous amount of resources, in some cases, real personal hardship because of the Depression. So it's not just all about material resources, it's also about having intact families, having a culture that values academic success, that values hard work. And those things are, those are products of culture that the government can't easily recreate, but it can encourage by exercising the discipline and leading by example and trying to inculcate those values in its institutions and encourage those values in society. And I don't think that we do that anymore, and we have allowed chaos to replace order in this country, and that has ultimately led to
totally
a lot
agree
of
with
these
you.
problems.
But I don't know that, I think the schools are a lagging indicator of
Sure.
a lot of other things. I mean, you go to a place in the state where it's safe, the streets are in good repair, there's businesses, people that want to move there. I'll bet you'll find a decent school. Now, Francis Howell may be the exception to that, but more often than not, I think you're going to find a decent school. Do you think some of these schools are too big? I hear it all the time. They want to dump on Dade County and say, consolidate, poor Hicks. I think maybe some of these schools are too big.
Yeah, no, I
Is
don't.
Francis Howell
So
too
one
big
th-
to succeed?
One thing that I think that more an expansion of school choice and more competition might do is force traditional school districts to change their models. I do think that in some rural school districts it makes sense to have satellite locations. Like maybe you go into a bigger school district one day for a couple of classes and then you have.
So
I think you could save money on transportation, you could save money on facilities, you could save money on infrastructure.
There's other
and
kids
you're still
that
at a
can
rural
come and
school.
spend time with Coach LePage for an hour.
Yes.
From Eldon and Ashland, places that, no
Yes.
offense, Kelton, that lose all the time. We have
And they may-
a
they
terrific
may pick
public
up
school
on
here, Ted
something.
LePage High School.
Those Eugene kids that get bussed on both Blair Oaks and Eugene kids that get bussed on Route E, maybe go to Blair Oaks a couple days a week. And
Well, so no, I mean,
Yeah,
let's,
right?
I mean, Ted can't be a state champion football coach and save everybody, but they could watch him for an hour, then go back to their school till he comes back once a year and beats them.
I mean, yeah, but I think more competition could actually force different models in traditional school districts that could work.
Well, it's funny. I think I don't think the traditional school people have any idea. They still live in a bizarro world that thinks that this is not going to
I
happen.
said could.
Well, I'm saying right now, I think it could too, but I think their mindset is still, they're going to stop. They see this tsunami and think, oh, we're going to stop this. I mean, what are the chances you go home in May of 2027 without a substantial education reform bill?
It's always uncertain whenever you're dealing with the legislature, but I agree that with your sentiment, I think the time has come. I think the pressure has built to the point that something will happen. I think there's still a lot of discussion to be had over what the specifics of those details look like.
I was in the Thalhuber Commission still meeting.
Yeah, but I really expect that 2027, certainly by the end of the Kehoe administration, I think the state of education is going to look much different in Missouri.
And I think what may happen, there are a lot of good people in public education on the traditional side. I do think once this is happening, I'm sure there'll be a lawsuit, and then once this is done, and I do think there will be substantial change. I do think the innovation can start. And I don't think all the innovation, I think it was going to be funny, to your point, I don't think all the innovation is going to be on the charter school side. I think you're going to see some public schools that start to innovate and do some of the things you're talking about. But I honestly think, just as an institution, they will not be able to even let their minds go there until it's done. And they'll probably pin their hopes on Chuck winning a lawsuit, and maybe he will. But overall, I'm with you. I think 27, a bill, more likely than not, passes. A substantial bill. I think there'll be a court fight, and if they win the court fight, I think you'll just pass another one, and that'll be that. That'll start the process to lead. And once it's final, and once the hopes and dreams are all crushed with the overlord equalizer, then I do think you'll see some innovation, and I think you'll be surprised how much comes from traditional schools.
I think that's absolutely right. I have a great deal of confidence in the traditional schools to meet the challenge of competition and to excel into
But
that
they've got to accept the
environment.
fact, and they're not going to accept the fact until you just force them.
Well, unfortunately, that may be true. I always hold out hope until the end that some kind of consensus can be reached. But I will admit that this may just be a fight that someone has to win and someone has to not win.
I think you've been preaching this sermon for 10 years now, and I think your salvation draweth nigh.
We can only hope.
But I don't think everyone's going to see it as salvation. And I think those folks, the same thing's going to happen regardless. Let's talk about taxes. You were a tax cutting dude. Have you cut taxes to the point where do you have to have a little bit of pause now when you cut taxes?
So I think there is a balance to be struck between tax cuts and being able to fund the government, because I think that the benefit from tax cuts always lags just a little bit behind the loss of revenue. Not always, but often.
Well, sure.
Because
when you
it takes
invest in a
time.
company, it takes time for the investment to pay off.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
And so where some states get in trouble is where they cut either too fast and they have not planned either appropriate spending cuts to mirror that, or they have not planned for whatever contingencies are going to occur, or where even worse, they cut taxes and then they raise spending. And that's just the absolute worst, because the actual burden of government
No, wait a minute, hold on.
is the amount of spending.
Same year
that
you
you're
cut
doing.
taxes, you redid the Chiefs Stadium, and you're building a stadium for a team with 5,000 fans that has 25,000 seats. So, is Missouri bumping up on what you just said?
No. Well, for one thing, that money hasn't been spent yet. That's simply an option that potentially exists out there.
I think at least the Chiefs are going to take that option.
You think so? Okay.
Well, I think it's a very generous subsidy. I think the Chiefs give a great quality of life. I think the Royals give a great quality of life to the players' moms and maybe 8 or 10 other people that show up to the games. She'll tell you she's a Royals fan. Ask her the last time she's actually went to a Royals
I said
game.
I grew up a Royals fan.
She walks by the Royals Stadium on her way to Arrowhead. That's what she does, which is what most Royals fans
That's
do.
what I did on Sunday.
But no, to your point, I think that we have to be very careful about spending, about making sure that over the next few years that we do not get ourselves in a tight position with the budget.
All right, let me ask you this. This is the question I asked Governor Kehoe, sitting in that same chair. He gave me an answer. I'm eager to hear your answer. Republican Party took over in 2002.
Not completely, but we began to take over.
Took over the General Assembly. Took over a supermajority in 2010, 12, something like that. Got there close in 10, 12. I think he took it over. Then took over every reign of power for 10 years now. Running up on 10 years, the Republicans have had total dominance of state government. Now you have a majority of Republican appointees in the Supreme Court. What in this state has gotten better in the last 25 years?
Well, so I think if you look at the overall economic disposition of the state, if we're talking economics, I think it has gotten better.
Because we've lost a congressional district since the Republicans took over. Have we seen the GDP increase above the national average? I don't think we have.
We have lost some population growth. That is certainly true.
But part of the promises, and this is my question to the governor.
Oh, that's true.
I have always been raised. You cut every tax you can. Hell yes, cut them all. I believe in a theory of government that conservatism works. However, unfortunately, I'm not sure what I point to after 25 years of consistently going more and more conservative. I don't know what statistic I would point to back up my case that it's working.
Well, I think what you're watching here is you've had 50 years of Democrat control.
The state grew.
Roughly. Well, the whole country grew.
Okay.
The whole country grew, and the policies that we're ultimately talking about, the policies that undergird economic growth, are having low taxes, are having a regulatory system that is minimally burdensome on free enterprise. That's having those free market principles in place.
When does it start to work in Missouri, though?
Well, it starts to work once we get everything in place, and we're still in a position where there's a lot of work to be done.
Tell me about that then.
Well, tax rates are still
See, I knew
too
you'd
high.
actually answer the question.
The tax rates are still too high.
Okay, but if you're going to spend money on schools, something tells me the bill you're going to pass in 27 is going to throw more money at this to get it done. Now, if I had to guess, it'll be kind of like the last thing. you'll throw some money at this, and then you'll jerk some money out a few years later after it's passed. But you're going to throw more money. I don't think you pass a bill that spends less money on education. I think you're going to spend more money. At some point, where do you get that money from? I mean, your colleagues want to get rid of property taxes. Yep. You and the governor want to get rid of income taxes.
In a way that is revenue neutral, and then will be revenue positive into the future because of the growth that it will unleash. And you have seen over the last, certainly the time that I've been in the legislature, you have seen a steady growth in the general revenue fund, even as we have cut taxes during that time period.
But not one person's moved here.
I'm not saying that a bunch of people have moved here yet. I think that is still something that we're working on, is trying to get more people to move back to the state, and more importantly, try to retain the people in the state. A lot of young people move out of Missouri and they look for opportunities elsewhere. There are still things that we can do to try to reverse that flow, get our talented people to stay here, attract talented people from other states. One of the things that's going to do that is that they're able to keep more of the money that they earn, that they're able to have a good education system that they can have available for their children, that they have a safe environment in which to live and raise their family. None of these things, like all these things work together. None of them are going to be a kill shot in isolation. None of them are a silver bullet in isolation. They all have to work together. And I would argue that we are making progress on every single one of those metrics in a great deal of adversity and with a great deal of headwinds from the federal government. Look at all the coal plants around Missouri that the Obama administration shut down. Look at Medicaid expansion. First we expanded Medicaid. That was not something the General Assembly did. That was a vote that was pushed through on the initiative petition process. And now look at the federal government starting to claw back the amount of money that they want to pay into the Medicaid system.
Just like some folks predicted.
That's going to be a problem that's going to
there are some Republicans right now that look very smart in saying they oppose Medicaid expansion. They didn't trust the federal government. Turns out they were right.
Yeah. And so, not only do we have to create good policies to fix the problems that this state had 25 years ago when we began the takeover that was finally consolidated in 2017, but we also have to continually try to mitigate all the problems that D.C. foists upon us.
So I don't know that I'm going to agree with Senator Trent on everything here, but I think there's something too. That would be boring.
That's right.
But so on taxes specifically, I think in graduate school we used to talk about lower the rates, broaden the base, and I think that's something that they need to look at with tax policy. I think he says the rates are too high. I think the average tax burden on a median household is too high. So you have to think about everything. So if you think about everything, property taxes, income tax, sales taxes that they're paying in parts of the state, all these other taxing districts that we have that go on top of all of that depending on where you're at or where you're shopping or what you're spending your money on that you're getting taxed on, we have to be able to bring the average tax burden for a normal Missouri family down. So I would agree with him on that. How we get there, I don't know that we're always going to agree there because and we have to think about all of the other inflation, that wages aren't keeping up. So we have to look at what kind of jobs we're bringing in. I think that the governor's shift of focusing on workforce is incredibly important. I think bringing people here and keeping them here is really going to depend on that. What kind of jobs are there? And he's in a really hard place where technology is advancing at such a rate that he's going to have to think about not jobs of today, but jobs of 10 or 15 years down the road. And so I think his pivot recently to talking about workforce, when he put out that workforce report, is really important. But I think we do agree on the burden on the average Missouri family is too high right now in terms of what they pay in taxes and the other costs that they have for their households. And healthcare is going to go up.
Yeah, and inflation is a really good point too. There's no faster way to kill an economy than to have a pervasive high inflationary environment. Like inflation is essentially or the money is essentially your measuring stick. What is an economic unit? And money is a store of that value, and we want to be able to have a consistent store of value so that if I'm holding dollars, I know I'm going to be able to buy the same amount of your services later that I could right now. And if you have inflation, all of that goes out the window. Inflation accrues unevenly across the economy. It just throws every calculation economically by business and by individuals into chaos. The higher it is, the more destructive it is.
But isn't the inflation we're enduring really comes from the COVID glut of money that was spent by the government? And I go back to, though, it's easy
that
to
worsened it.
But it's easy to look back today and say, oh, they should have done that. I mean, I remember COVID. It was scary as hell. They were, the government wanted everybody to stay home. Folks were afraid. I think what the Trump administration did was, it was socialism, if you want the truth. It was ingenious. It prevented this country from going into a depression. But there's a bill to be paid for that, and I think we're paying it through inflation.
Well, that's COVID. The money that was spent and the debt that was monetized during COVID certainly made it worse. But it has been the policy of this country for decades to have a 2%-ish, 1 to 2% inflationary rate. Just as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, we have some built-in inflation. And I don't think that is particularly healthy either for us to have. It's a long-term, slight movement of wealth away from the people that produce the wealth to all the financialization, to government, to politically connected individuals who are the first recipients of the money. And I don't think it should be as a matter of policy of this country's monetary system to slowly dispossess producers.
I'm not sure I understand what you said, but it sounded very intelligent.
I think some of it is.
I'd like to think I'm smart enough to agree with it.
Yeah, labor and capital, I think, are way off a little bit.
Well, and you really saw that if you go back and look at some of the statistics, you really see that break apart back in the 70s, where GDP, national production, continued to rise rapidly. Worker pay began to stagnate, and I would argue that is a monetary phenomenon that occurred. That was the beginning of the dispossession of people who produce real goods and services that actually are the value that the economy produces. That was the beginning of the movement away from them getting the resources that they were producing, and the movement of that into the financialization and into the basically into the hands of government, into the hands of the politically connected.
Well, let's talk about politics. You've got four kind of moving parts. You got an abortion kind of counter to the last IP on the ballot. I think it's about a 50-50 shot. There's some good things happening on the pro-life side that are going to make this, at least they're going to be competitive, right?
Pro-life side is motivated, they're organized, they're working really hard.
And they're actually working together a little bit. Holy hell, who would have thought?
They're working together. The money is always an issue. It's always difficult to raise as much money.
Not a bad treasure for the pro-life side PAC, though.
Sure.
That was legit.
But the other side is moving in lots of money from their national operations, and so you're always going to have an uphill struggle on the funding side.
I do think there's a little bit of I won't say false optimism on the pro-life side, though, because they were proud of their efforts to close the gap in that campaign toward the end. But I will say, at Missouri, much easier to close that gap when you're wanting to know. When you're the one wanting it, I think we were talking yesterday. I'm not sure I can remember with Ellinger, who's at the center of all these things. Mark, I asked him, I said, have you ever seen a side that was on the no side that spent the most money and lost? And I can't remember one I've ever seen where if you're wanting a no and you outspend the yes side, that systematically you have a huge advantage. But I thought it was well written. It was crafted with some it wasn't the pretty staunch law that was before. This is something that is more of a compromise position. You got some of the trans language in there. I think there's reason for optimism.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's talk about the map. Do you think there's a precinct in 2? Because Chuck Hatfield sat in that chair and told me there absolutely was. Mark Ellinger said that is super not true. What do you think?
I mean, it doesn't appear to be true. I think extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and I have yet to see extraordinary proof.
See, I'm not smart enough to know what I'm seeing, but they do have a nice map that shows it not contiguous. But I'll just ask you the question: did you get time to personally look through that map before the process was moving?
Well, I mean, if you look at the bill, it's a series of coordinates. And so, you're just looking at a map that has been generated from those coordinates.
it felt like the process was a little sloppy.
Um,
I mean, I don't think they sent you guys the map until like the week of, right?
It
Wasn't a lot of time to look at what Washington sent over.
So I think the map was generally available, and people had knowledge of it much more than a week before it.
You felt comfortable
happened.
with how much time you had to look?
Yeah.
I mean, by the time the House
Yeah.
was passing it, it sort of was in the chute, right?
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot you were going to do by the time it came to you guys.
No, I mean, I think that that the map had largely been agreed to at that point. Everybody had looked at it, was comfortable with it. That was going to be comfortable with it. Of course, there's some people who were never going to be comfortable with it. But no, didn't detect any of the concerns that some other folks have articulated about the process.
You get to session, and there's a special session, and the first thing you do is change the Senate rules to take in House bills. You came from the House. I've heard you articulate the advantages of the House. It's a different place. Do you worry that you're trying to turn your chamber into that? And not that that's bad. That's totally objective opinion of it's bad or not. But they should be different. And
I
did
agree.
you have to grit your teeth to do that?
No, I didn't. I will agree that the Senate should not be the House. They serve very different roles. I always had a great appreciation for the Senate, even when I was in the House. And the temptation is when you're in the House is to complain about the many features of the Senate. They seem like deficiencies when you're in the House. But I always thought that they were features, not bugs, and I still believe that. And I think that we want to keep the character of the Senate, the tempo and the tone of the Senate, what it has traditionally been. But I think
change the rules?
But I think that it requires both sides, so to speak, in order to make that happen. And I think that you can deform the character of the Senate by making it too much like the House. I think you also deform the character of the Senate by trying to pretend that there are 34 vetoes out there, 34 governors that get to decide.
I agree with your point totally. I think that all 34 of you should have been ashamed when you went home. Nobody looked good. There was no heroes. There was no. I don't think anybody thought this is how this should work, and I think it's on the Democrats. It's going to be more on the party in power, but they certainly had a role in that circus that they should be ashamed of as well. I mean, I have a hard time thinking Jim Matheson would have thought that was how his party should have handled that.
So my hope is that everyone takes a step back and that everyone thinks about where we want to go.
If you don't want to be more like the House, to me, you were going to pass this map when the president said do it. It was going to happen. Why not just go through the process of the Missouri Senate and do it the right way?
Well, what additional process do you think should have been afforded at that point?
You should have followed the rules and the order of business. And you were going to have to do more PQs and more procedural moves. But if this is so important, if getting rid of Emmanuel Cleaver is so important, why wouldn't you just do it right?
And do you think more PQs does more to deform, or it does less to deform the Senate than changing the rules? You think they're equivalent?
I personally don't think this was that big a deal. I think if you were getting rid of Cori Bush, it would have been different. Getting rid of a person that does add to the state, in Emmanuel Cleaver, I don't think that's just all upside. I also think doing things just for partisanship usually doesn't work well.
Well, and and I may not be the right person to talk to about this, because for me, this was a policy position I held back when we did the map
but it's
in
strictly
2022.
for the goal of partisanship.
And
there's nothing good for the people of the
and
state.
for me, this was not strictly about partisanship. I
You
believe
call it a 7-1 map for a reason, right?
that is the practical outcome. But I believe that this map is more reflective of what the actual voters of Missouri, where they're actually at. I think it's a more accurate reflection of the natural geography of the state, and so I'm not convinced that this was a mere, partisan political, thing of the moment. I think this is more like the map I would have wanted to seen 3 years ago. And so for
it's
me,
certainly not as bad as Illinois, but I don't think the natural geography is putting my desk right here in the same congressional district as the Kansas City Star's offices.
You don't think you have any ties or connections? You don't think that we have the concept of metropolitan statistical areas just for this reason. The regional interests of a part of the state go beyond the arbitrary political lines that were drawn by a city at some point. The things that go on in the areas outside of Kansas City are directly impacted and affected by the things that go on inside the city, and vice versa. They are one unit that cannot be naturally separated by any interest, whether that be economic or cultural
Well,
or
I'd like to
anything
see
else.
a central Missouri congressional district. I think that would be great.
And there's potential that could be a feature that could naturally occur.
Maybe
at
next
some point
session
in the
they just
future.
redraw that one.
But I would argue is that the 6-2 map was the map that was gerrymandered to protect incumbents. It was the map that was created for partisan reasons.
Well, this was gerrymandered to protect 6 incumbents.
Oh, I think it was to protect 8 incumbents, but.
The other one was protect 8. This
Yes.
one was to protect 6. The Voting Rights Act protects Wesley Bells. There's no question they drew this map to protect 6 incumbents. Federal law protects the other one. This was what to go after one.
So another part of this we haven't really touched on that much is I think maybe I was thinking about this last night after we had this conversation with Mark yesterday, but I think maybe my biggest problem with the process is like when we talk about what the average Missourian cares about, this is not going to be at the top of their
Yeah,
list.
I agree.
And
I don't
maybe,
think this
and maybe
statistically-
maybe Senator Trent's right. Maybe I think that he just made a very articulate
I
argument
told you he's
for
damn
it.
smart.
So I'm not going to try to poke holes in that argument he just made. I'm just
I don't
gonna
agree with him, but I
propose
can't
a
really tell you
different
why.
I'm just going to propose a different argument that I don't think the average Missourian cares all that much.
I don't think they give a damn at all.
And so I think
Yeah,
we
I
should
mean-
Not one
we
damn.
should call it, if we're going to call a special session, we should call it over the things that they care about.
I will say though that was so damn good. I disagree with what you're saying.
That's
I
why-
just can't quite
I just-
figure out here in the moment
I
why.
was like, well,
I'm gonna have to go rewatch this and make some notes and maybe call some other smart people.
I think he was saying Kansas City's really
Flat,
diverse.
no, you got
and
anything
it's
to say? Damn, he said that awfully well.
somebody,
Um,
you know what? It would have been nice to hear that on the floor.
Now,
I was sitting out there. They could have called on me.
Let's roll to the next thing, though. So you said it shouldn't be like the House. IP reform is something I actually support. I think this is a little squirrely. Everybody supports IP reform, and you have to pick one. I get that. But so I think you were going to have to do this. Everybody was doing this. There was no getting around it. So you do it. I do think you go through the paces and do it the right way. I think changing the rules is worse than a PQ. I think the rules are there for a reason, and they were, by God, good enough for Dick Webster. They're good enough for Curtis Trent. But then you have a proposed change to the Missouri Constitution, and I don't even think you read the title in. I think you PQ'd it with absolutely no debate or discussion. And I get it. You all wanted to leave, but, I mean, you're going to take pay for the full day. Why not work?
Well, I can't second guess.
I don't believe that you thought that was the right way to do that. If you tell me, I'll tell you to your face, I don't believe you thought that was the right way to do it.
I don't think it was necessary. I'll put it that way.
I agree. It was totally
I don't
unnecessary.
think it was necessary. But, I think the outcome was going to be the same in
I
either
agree.
direction. And so certainly, I wish.
So why not do it right?
And this maybe goes back to one of my earlier points, is I wish there would be more actual debate.
Yeah.
When I sit out on the floor, especially folks on the other side of the aisle that have deep disagreements, I wish that instead of, like when they're holding the floor to filibuster, I wish they would actually just call on members of the opposing party and talk to them about it.
I tell you what, Nick Shore.
It used to be like
I
that.
respect
think
Nick Shore. When he has a bill on the floor, he actually sits out there and takes inquiries. Now, they probably don't call on you because you say smart shit like you did a second ago, so they probably don't want to get jammed up. But there may be a reason they call on certain people.
I don't know about that, but they can talk to whoever they want. But I do think that it is, it's supposed to be a deliberative body for a reason. I think it is good to deliberate and actually talk about these issues.
I think you went through a thing of, I generally don't think these PQs are good. I don't think they're very effective. I think most of the time when they're used, the public policy doesn't really change. I think changing the Senate rules is something you ought to really have to have a reason. And just I want to go home early is not good enough.
No, I would agree. I'm very reluctant to see any significant changes. I think we should always think about them. I think it should always be an option, but I'd be reluctant to see any permanent rule changes.
You voted for a PQ on IP reform. Do you believe IP reform has a hope in hell of passing as it currently is going to the ballot?
I think there are indicators that it does have a chance of passage.
Like what the hell would that be?
Polling that has been done, focus groups, whatever has been done. Now, I will agree with you.
Group at Grand Cafe named Sam Licklider, and he says no. And I
that's
think
an interesting focus group.
I got more confidence in my focus group than yours.
Wow.
Well, you may be right on that one. It's hard to argue on that one, but.
Do you not think a thoughtful person could come up with an opportunity? I actually think IP reform is needed in this state. I really do. Mm-hmm. I don't think it should be impossible, but I think it should be a little harder for the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And I think there are reasonable ways to go about that. I don't think this has a hope in hell of passing. I think you all went and passed a bill you didn't even debate with PQs, with screwball rules that'll never affect public policy because it'll never happen.
So ironically, I think that the best way to change the IP process would be through the IP process.
I think he's right.
Is there not a global way to come out and say, okay, we're going to make it 55%, something reasonable that you could still do. We're going to make you go to every congressional district and get signatures so it's harder to get on the ballot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then, I don't really know why. I asked Ashley when she was in that chair. Mm-hmm. I was like, so my signature in Butler County doesn't count at all, but yours counts a lot in Platte County, which is the truth. Mm-hmm. And then you go with the statutory thing. Say, okay, 3 years, it's protected. Something you give the voters
probably
something.
Needs to be longer than that, but yeah.
There's things that
I think the statutory framework is probably about right. Mm-hmm. I think maybe you do deserve some protections from it being changed immediately to see how it goes. I mean, none of these policies are so. Prop A is pretty damn close, but none of these things are so dramatically awful that the state can't endure if they can't put them back on the ballot.
I will say also that there are sometimes, and we see this in constitutional amendments as well, there are sometimes unintended consequences to that, or there are just things that are akin to drafting errors. Like there were just mistakes made because these things don't go through the same vetting process. And so which
is where I thought the map, and I have no idea if it's accurate or not. My assumption is there's arguments on both sides, just from my bullshit detector. Yeah. But if there was an error, it was because it was done a little sloppy, because that whole process was pretty sloppy.
Yeah, I think if there is actually an error, that would be a significant problem, a significant indictment of the process.
I'll bet you a sweet tea with Bruce one day that, and I'll make sure you have your Diet Coke. Me and Bruce will drink sweet tea, but I'll bet you that it passes court muster, but it doesn't pass the public. I think the public may cough this back up.
You think that there'll be a initiative petition on this?
Well, I think there'll be a citizen's veto.
Yeah.
And I think the same public that kicked Frank White out 85-15 will, if they have a chance of veto any law, I don't think they're going to read it or care. They're just going to veto it.
Well, that augurs against the substance of the policy being bad and just, people not trusting politicians, which is a healthy impulse.
I think you have a very good, I don't agree with your reasoning as far as the geography makes more sense, or it's not representative of the voters. I mean, this is not, there's no percentage of vote that equals a 7-to-1 map. I think what's happened in Illinois and Massachusetts and Maryland, how do you go back and tell the Target barbecue that you're doing what you can do to fight them when they're going to the mat on everything and you're not?
And Missouri, by the way, there was no math that equaled a 9-1 math back in the 70s, but yet that's what we had.
Oh, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Who was the one?
Southwest Missouri. Mm-hmm. That was us.
I was waiting for you to say. Damn, I was trying to tee you up. Was that Mel Hancock days?
No, that was Gene Taylor days.
Gene Taylor days. Gotcha.
I believe so. Yeah. It was,
all right. What are you gonna be for Halloween?
A little bit before my time. I don't have any Halloween plans yet. I'm not a big Halloween guy.
I'm a big Halloween guy.
Have you seen this place?
As I've gotten older, it's probably my favorite holiday. Gussie's going to be a pickle. Yeah,
okay.
Something off some video game he plays. I don't really understand it, if you want the truth, but it's what he wanted. So I was going to be a bigger pickle, but then I thought we'd get creative. Casey's got some ideas. I haven't really decided. So the 25th, downtown, everybody comes downtown and trick-or-treats the Saturday before, and then we're going to do some things on Halloween. But I love Halloween. It's great. And what are you going to be?
I'm gonna get the kids ready. I'm still mom on Halloween. I don't have time for
You're not gonna have like matching
Well,
costumes.
we've done that before.
What's your best matching costume?
So we did. So I was Leslie Knope. Blake was Ron Swanson, and we only had one child at the time. So it was the little little mini horse from the show. Little Sebastian was the kid. Was Tate? I dressed him up as Little Sebastian. That was our best one, and it was 2020, so it was fun. But
so one time I won a contest with this lady I went with. I'm sure she's not watching. I had a shirt on that said Peter Peter with some pumpkin on my face, and she dressed as a pumpkin. And we actually won. I think it was at Tilly's party that we won the contest.
You get so close to having a good show, and then you just
well,
make Kelton. Kelton
Folks,
gets so upset.
Folks,
You've messed up our algorithm again.
You've now encouraged him to turn it up.
We were down in Madrid County for Showing Missouri. Learned all about the history of New Madrid County, how the all kind of, as everything is based on the river and controlling that river. But we have some watchers on the county commission of this very show, and they have a gift for you that they sent back with me. They said I shouldn't have the only stein, so this is a duck stein.
It's
that you
very cool.
There's some decent duck in
Wow.
Southeast Missouri.
Yeah.
Now you have a beer stein to prove it.
Ryan Gill is going to be so jealous.
As he should be.
Did they know that we actually have bird dogs? They probably don't.
Did not know because I did not know that to tell them.
I hope that they're watching because we actually have a German Shorthair Pointer.
Appreciate this, Chad. Thank you. That is straight from New Madrid with ducks.
It's even got a certificate in there.
That's I didn't use it.
Cool.
I actually was so worried Gussie would break it. I took it immediately home and put it up, and then I forgot to bring it in yesterday. Also, if you are coming up here from New Madrid, only one place to stay. Senator, if you had kinfolks coming in that you liked, which hotel are you putting them up at?
The newest one.
The Courtyard by Marriott, of course he is. Also want to thank our friends in the great Northwest, as Senator Hageman used to say up at United Fiber. And then the one product that is grown, tested, shipped, packaged, there is no more Missouri product than the products from Mocan Trade. If you want to use some kind of medicine that's not some shot in the arm, not some vaccine you get from some doctor. If you want actually some local medicine that never knows what it's like to touch any ground outside Missouri, go to Mocan Trade, and their members will get you something that'll take care of what ails you. Senator, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to be here.
I could literally do this for another hour with you, just going down and talking different stuff. But I know you probably have more important people to talk to today.
I could too. At the very least, my parking meter is probably about to run out. So.
I fixed the parking. You could pretty much the Gandhi of High Street, and they're going to screw it up. They've tried to invite me to these things. I'm like, I don't want to go meet the people who I'm going to be savaging. I fixed the parking. It was great, and now they're just going to screw it all up again. Every time the government does anything, they screw it up. God bless them. You could just. It's that song, I can feel it coming in the air tonight. And they've asked me to come to all these meetings. I'm like, no, just what you're doing now is perfect. The best thing the government can do is nothing.
You are the primary stakeholder in the...
I'm about to light their ass up. And they don't even...
In the parking
honestly, they don't even know the shit I'm about to pull that is going to just... God bless you, parking people, because I'm about to come back with bigger guns.
They have a lot of time during their day. You may not want to give them this much heads up about it.
I'm coming, and I ain't never shot anybody in the back. But let's see. I'm sure I'd like to say it won't be that bad, but I have no doubt it'll be totally the shits. But we'll see how it goes. Aaron, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah.
Twice this week. At least you got something to take home with you.
I did. I'm pretty stoked.
Senator, please tell Bruce we said hi.
Will do.
And we will see you. We're on the road. We're going to the new police board you created in St. Louis.
Oh, excellent.
We're going to interview some of the cops and some of the legislators that made that happen in St. Louis Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics. Then we'll be, Kelton, are we going to be back in studio the week after that? Or no, we're going to Northwest Missouri State. Oh. You talk about winning football games. Them old boys up in Maryville win football games. Mm-hmm. We'll be at the Bearcat Stadium the week after that. We'll be back here sometime next week. Aaron, are you going to host a show on Tuesday of next week?
Ooh, don't tell anybody.
We got to promo it.
I
actually think that the ratings are going to spike. It's going to really hurt my ego.
Well, I've been planning this coup for some time, so
Is Tuesday the day?
I think it is Tuesday. It's a
We're locking that
Tuesday takeover.
Kelton, we're locked in for Tuesday. Aaron?
It's the coup that
I'm gonna go
nobody
crazy and
asked
take
for,
off.
but maybe some people wanted.
Oh, I bet it will be. My phone's already buzzing with this news. Are we in? Kelton, are we in for Tuesday?
And I need some of our Irish brethren, our heritage legislators to call in because this is an Irish takeover.
We're the first time you ever took anything over that car bomb.
It will, yeah, exactly. I'm trying to stand up for my people. We get beat up on a lot.
Yeah, but you're kind of lovable about it.
We are lovable.
That is one thing
Yeah,
about you Irish
absolutely.
is, I mean, you don't win a lot, but you're very nice about losing,
Very great people.
You should bring McKenna in. Everybody likes it. It pisses me off sometimes.
McKenna's on the
because everyone likes
list.
McKenna. Like, no one likes me, and everyone likes McKenna. And I'm like, we have the same jokes.
We need some McKenna signs. I need some McKenna signs. I'm gonna bring more
Oh, I
Dolan
love it,
signs.
yeah.
We have a
that'd
whole
be
plan.
cool,
When I
yeah.
say this is an Irish takeover, you've beat up on my people for too long.
Well, this is going to be great. I'm going to watch.
Yeah. So there's the
But-
call
but
out.
guys,
If you're interested, call
don't
in.
watch too much more than you watch now. Because Kelton keeps these statistics, and he likes Aaron better than me already. So
I'm gonna have my.
As
Yep,
you should.
I'm gonna-
As you
yep.
should. Well, we've tied the Senator up long enough. Senator, thank you so much. We will see you all Sunday from St. Louis City, the Police Union Hall. We'll be fine. For This Week in Missouri Politics.